Most of us, we start our careers in healthcare with altruism, but far too many develop calluses from the workplace hazard of burnout. When I trained in medicine, the word did not exist, at least not in the vocabulary of the leadership in our medical school and along the trajectory of clinical training. Fast forward to many years later, myself as well as the world is just starting to realize that burnout is a critical issue and quite prevalent, particularly in healthcare. As a physician, you're taught to hone your observational skills, to be attentive, gather information from the patient's presentation, develop your differentials and your likely diagnosis. So this skill, it doesn't turn off when you leave the patient encounter. And that's what led me to notice around me that something wasn't quite right in the healthcare field. I worked in oncology research and in healthcare administration in clinical science, in clinical studies, and behind the scenes. I noticed that physicians were expressing something that I could not quite understand. During our educational session in my emergency medicine clinical rotation, the physician came in and said to us, "Get out while you still can. Become a nurse practitioner, a physician assistant, anything but a physician." And I could not grasp why this doctor would take this time and this risk to try and convince us not to follow what we felt was our calling in our field. Again, my observational skills peaked when I was working in administration in the emergency department. And a physician came in looking under the weather, and he said he's lost hope in humanity. I realized that the conversation earlier around the front desk was unfortunately about that same physician who it turns out had called in sick. This physician, who may have been burnt out, was affected individually. However, burnout is not an individual construct. It touches many people. When you consider healthcare, it can be easy to focus on the narrow portion of the picture that's before us. So if you're a doctor, administrator, or nurse, your focus is on your task for the day, and likely you don't immediately think of how it impacts the rest of those on your team, whether it's your coworkers, ancillary staff, or physician. Even the training in healthcare is often taught to us as if we're within a silo. The focus is on each individual and your personal efforts to reach your career goal. However, once you reach that goal, you will soon realize that it's not by individual effort. Particularly, healthcare takes teamwork. Not only teamwork to ensure the best care for the patients, but teamwork to ensure that the workplace is in fact a tolerable place to work. The next video we're going to watch is an example of how we're all in this together. Real people in different areas of healthcare, none of whom have read Reality Check, and they're sharing their candid thoughts and, interestingly, similar views.
I'm a registered nurse for about 3 years now.
Portering at FNC.
I've been here for 2 years.
Around 12 years.
I think about 2 years now.
I'm a support worker, about 16 years.
I work as a medical office assistant, six and a half years now.
So I'm a physician, a resident physician for a few years, since 2020 to about 2022. And then after that, I was a staff physician. So in total, about 5 years.
For me, burnout is when you feel like you've had like a lot of workload on you and you're getting stressed in a lot of situations where there's just a lot of like environmental factors and a lot being put on you all at once. and like you're not able to perform like your duties anymore. That can come from like working lots of hours, not getting enough help from other people.
Overworked. That's what burnout is, overworked, stressed.
It's like a mental, emotional, physical exhaustion, like over like a long period of time where you just done.
Your physical and mental capacity is not letting you do what you actually want to do. Yeah. And achieve your targets. Yeah.
Experienced when boundaries are pushed or limits are pushed or exceeded. My understanding of it is that oftentimes you don't really notice that burnout is present at the time until maybe it's a little bit too late or until after the fact. So it's very hard to recognize, especially when in our line of work and our industry, we are kind of bred in this culture of continuously pushing our limits with things like 24-hour call and doing that multiple times a week sometimes. There's a lot about burnout that I don't necessarily know or appreciate. So yeah, that's my very rudimentary understanding of it.
Experience, I think definitely like the younger generation is tending to get burnt out a lot more. I've noticed like people like leaving the workforce like early on in their career. I'm not sure if it's because, well, times are different now, especially like after COVID. I graduated during COVID. I think that played like a huge factor in like a lot of nurses like my age getting burnt out easily, with like being like understaffed at work, not getting enough help, and all those things.
Actually, it affects younger more than me. I see younger people are more burnt out than me.
I also think that some of the newer workers coming into the industry aren't necessarily prepared for what the job entails.
I think it's because the younger workers are kind of expected to pick up the slack for the older workers.
I don't think that it's more about age. I think it can happen to anybody, but then somewhere I think it's just the kind of exposure or the more you work, and like it depends on how the person takes it, right? So if they have more experience and their flight and fight mode is okay, then they are more used to dealing with the situations, right? So it depends on the experience, not on the age factor.
I think both can be impacted equally, but I do think time and the amount of time you've been practicing for may be a strong contributing factor.
I don't think like the public outside of the walls really understand like the kind of things that happen in the hospital. I think like if you're like kind of not like in the workforce, it's kind of hard to understand, like just based on like other people's like opinions and like what we do.
No, I don't think so. If they understand, they wouldn't have complained about everything we do. Because you hear complain all the time. Because they don't see it. They see us individual. Like if a patient, I go to pick him up, he only see me. He doesn't see where I was before that, what I did before that. So it's an isolated thing. They don't have a full understanding of everything. And I don't blame them too, because they're dealing with burnout and shortage of staff. So they are waiting too. So you can't blame them also.
No, I don't. I think what's portrayed to the public and what actually happens are two very different things. And I think that was highlighted during COVID, because I think the public saw one thing and what was actually happening in the hospitals was way more chaotic and depressing and hard.
Absolutely not. I don't think they understand at all. I think it's something I don't think I even understood until I was in it and had a couple years working in supportive care on the residential side. Yeah, I just don't think they have an understanding at all about the constant need for workers to regulate their own emotions when they're dealing with high emotional clients, or the constant abuse that we get not only from clients but from other people in the community that may not understand what is going on when we are dealing with our clients in the community.
I don't think so. I think they kind of got a glimpse of what it was during the COVID pandemic. But we had both ends of the scale where people were highly concerned, and then there were other individuals that were completely against everything. I think being able to understand what a healthcare worker goes through on a day-to-day basis, dealing with whether that's patients or upper management or it's the work. You have to be in healthcare to be able to completely understand that.
Sometimes yes, but sometimes no, right? Like because they don't see that, like they sometimes if they are suffering or they have problems in their life, they don't realize that they take out on the healthcare staff. Uh, Even though we are trained to deal with this kind of clients or customers, somewhere like we do turn to burnout at eventually at some stage, right? So it's just how the person copes with it, right?
I I think some of the public does. I think it depends on how we're portrayed by the government and the media. I don't think they truly understand what it's like, but I think that's with anything though. Without really experiencing it yourself, you don't truly understand what someone is going through. So like, if the public is not in healthcare, then they won't truly understand or appreciate how it is to be in our shoes.
Yeah, I think so. That would be great if they understood what we were going through.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think so, yeah, because then hopefully that would provide a better understanding for how the system is right now and how factors of the system can contribute to burnout and how many cogs and members of the healthcare system can experience burnout, how it's so easy to experience given how much stress is on our system. So I think educating the public would definitely give them better understanding of what it's like in our shoes and with our experience, and might provide a little bit more uh, maybe understanding as to what we might be going through on a day to day.
Yeah, I think there should be because I think it's better, like, when they get more information that we are also human beings and we also go through burnout. If they are aware about it, I think it does matter, right?
Yes, I actually do. Yeah. I've seen others that have experienced it, not like personally for myself. Hmm.
I do notice that there's violence in the hospital towards healthcare workers. Yes. I actually recently heard that stat, and I mean, I'm not surprised with the stuff that they deal with. Sometimes when we're working with ER, the things that we see are very surprising. That people, whether sometimes the person is completely there, like mentally, and they're still abusing the staff. It's understandable when they're suffering cognitively and just not able to understand what is going on, like dementia patients, Alzheimer's patients, or any head injury patients that come in. That's understandable where their behavior is coming from. But individuals that are completely okay, that are still treating staff like they're beneath them, or throwing stuff at them, or lunging at them, punching them, yeah, I absolutely believe it.
No, actually, that's a very um, So that's very eye-opening, honestly. I was not aware of that.
It's shocking to me because this is not third world. This is Canada, Like by now, gender discrimination should be eliminated. Especially on a highly educated people. Doctors are a highly educated people.
Like, I didn't know that statistic, but I am not surprised by it. I think the industry has been predominantly male for a long time, and women are trying to find their footing here. And I feel like they're less likely to probably be heard, so they have to work harder. And then on the stresses of just everyday life as a woman, you have to take care of your home life, and you're supposed to fit into these neat boxes, and you're supposed to whatever. So like, I think it's harder to be taken serious in that role versus a man, where it's just like that makes sense, So the statistic doesn't surprise me, but it's sad.
No, I was not aware of that. It's sad, and I hope that can be improved.
No, I wasn't aware of that either.
Sadly, no. I mean, it's the environment. Like, it's a main dominated industry. It has been for a long time, where women were only nurses for a really long time. And I know now there are a lot more women that are physicians, and so just being able to get a foothold is really difficult. And I know that female physicians are, a lot more empathetic and compassionate towards their patients. The bedside manner is a lot better than their male colleagues. But I think that empathy and that compassion can also get them into trouble themselves, right? Because you're taking all of that stuff home as well.
More help for people because I feel like it's kind of hard to ask for help sometimes. I think it will definitely be helpful to have the resources before you get burnt out, especially for the people like just entering like the workforce or like just starting their profession. All of that might help like more people like reach out like before they reach that stage.
Recognizing it for what it is, instead of just kind of, I think usually what the norm has been is to do a little survey and then do a little activity. It's not something that goes away, like at the drop of a hat, but also getting to the root cause of it. Like, what is causing it? Can we do something differently to make it more efficient for our employees, instead of just throwing everything on them and expecting them to just work through it?
The healthcare system lacks coordination. The biggest lack is coordination and an input from its employee. It's just a decision, comes from up, down.
I think offering some form of like compensation for sick days. So I can speak from the physician standpoint. A lot of physicians go to school for a very long time, and during that time accumulate a lot of debt that needs to be paid off. And so there's a huge financial stress for that. And as you may know, like if you, as a physician, if you don't work, you don't get, you don't make anything, you don't get paid. So that is something to think about when thinking about burnout. And it's harder to say no to work because of that financial stress, especially when you may not be feeling as good mentally or what have you. And I think some sort of support from that perspective may tend to help with reducing burnout or help with supporting through burnout while things are getting managed, from that perspective. And so it takes a lot to call in sick.
I think a lot of choices are made by people who don't actually walk in our shoes, making it difficult, and they don't realize that. And just from my own experience here, there's always this talk that there's an open door policy, but the reality is it's very closed and you only get one response and they don't want to deal with it. So it's the response of, oh, my hands are tied because of X, Y, and Z, or just like a generalized, like, oh, a job is a job, so deal with it. When the reality is a job isn't just a job, right?
Reality check will teach you how to tackle issues as mentioned in the video. What do you do when you're on the receiving end of criticisms or hostility, frustrated patients, or burnt out coworkers? It will prepare healthcare students for the workplace and educate the public. In our lifetime, we spend an average of 90,000 hours working. We may even see our coworkers more than our family members. I know we're not soldiers, and nor do I condone war efforts in any regard, but one thing I can say is a common notion that no man, no person is left behind is one thing that would do good to be adopted within our workplaces. When a workplace turns toxic, it's not difficult to see just how lonely life can become. The ultimate goal of reality check is really that people would understand, gain a stronger self-awareness, and in addition, awareness that we're not meant to be individual islands in our workplaces. Aware that showing our struggles as well as recognizing others' struggles is not a sign of weakness. This emotional intelligence is a greater sign of resilience. Quite the opposite. We are all human in our careers, whether you are working in healthcare or not, in a particular role or another. It does not change your humanity. Our needs remain the same, and nobody wants to feel dispensable. I wrote Reality Check so that if only one person could read it, understand that they're not alone in what they're going through, and gather the tools to overcome their struggles, then my job is accomplished. Hopefully you don't have too heavy a hurt now, but you understand the background behind this book. And I hope that you will take it to heart, that you'll know that you're not dispensable at all, and that people care, and ultimately show each other that you care. Make it more of a community, interact with your coworkers, and as the statistics show, there are people that are going through struggles and they think that nobody cares about it. So try to, I guess, be that for someone else. And if you are going through that struggle, talk with others. There's always someone that's willing to listen.